Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. He is a CPA, and he is passionate about helping business owners scale, increase profits, and minimize taxes. With over 12 years of experience working at a global accounting and consulting firm and in corporate America, he has run a CPA firm specializing in CFO services and tax minimization strategy. He deeply enjoys talking and reading about entrepreneurship. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to Alex Lopez. How are you, Alex?
I'm great. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks, Cesar.
Yeah, definitely. So, tell me a little bit about, I always find this very interesting, right? We come to this place where, as we're growing and doing things, we have a specific thing, a specific niche, but it doesn't start there, right? And it really, in my opinion, it really starts from your upbringing. It starts from, where did you come from and all that stuff. So, tell me about your upbringing. Where are you originally from, and where are you calling us from?
Absolutely. You hit the nail in the head. It all starts with that.
Yeah.
I come from a little place named Medellin, Colombia.
Ah.
And some may have heard of it. Uh, During an interesting time in history, right? So I lived my childhood there, and we eventually effectively fled to the US in the late 90s.
Mm.
Now, it was a tough time, growing up in the late 80s and 90s in Medellin. I'm sure you know what I'm hinting at.
Pablo
But
Escobar.
I'm sorry?
Pablo Escobar.
Oh yeah, and company and a few other
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
But I am happy to say that I was one of the fortunate ones.
Hmm.
I was come luckily from the bright part of town, and it really shaped my life. Seeing the contrasts of, everything that was going on at that particular time, it was really two worlds, right? It was one of chaos and disaster, violence, and then, all the good things about my beautiful country that were always
Hmm.
there as well. And the part of town that I come from is full of high rises, is where, because Medellin is a valley,
Hmm.
it's it's a relatively small area for the number of people that live there, a few million. So you have nowhere to go but up, right? So there are a lot of high rises in the part of town that I grew up in, and I just always loved the buildings, right?
Hmm.
I just always had a passion for architecture, particularly high rises. And that shaped me, and it got me interested in real estate. And
Mm.
that's how I started out my professional career. It was in the real estate business, and in great part due to, all the childhood memories, seeing the buildings being constructed and just always enjoying the views and wanting to learn more about the people behind those projects and things of that nature.
Got it. Okay. And I want to talk about something. I think that's important to notate, and again, knowing, especially when you see it, even there, you were living in two different worlds, right? In Medellin, but even coming here, it's a whole different world too, right? And I know for myself, I'm from Mexico. I came from Mexico City when I was 10, and so for me, it was a little bit of a challenge to be able to adjust to the new this new way of living and the different cultures and so many different things that took place, right? But I go back to the idea that especially people that are coming from other countries, right? You have two options. Number one, you can either create something for yourself and utilize that to your advantage, or other people unfortunately decide to not take the opportunity that's in front of them, and then they fall into bad habits, right? And sometimes don't people don't recover from that. They stay in those bad habits, whether it's gangs or whatever that case may be, right? And so it's negative things. Let's talk about your journey, because obviously you've been very successful. You've made a lot of different things based on what we're talking about in your description, and helping people be able to create that. Besides the fact that you guys flew out of the country, what was the drive? Like, where was that spirit of being an entrepreneur, or even saying, "Hey, I want to be able to get into a big company, big organization, and be able to help them"? Where did that come from?
So I've always had a fascination for entrepreneurs. And then going back to Medellin again, obviously we get a lot of publicity for the
Mm-hmm.
dark characters in history, but it's also a place known for its entrepreneurs. It is
Mm,
it is the home of a lot of very, very, very successful, you know, world-renowned entrepreneurs and multi-billion dollar companies on a regional level for the most part.
mm-hmm.
And I was just fascinated by that. And when we came here, I mean, it's a whole other level, the
Mm-hmm.
way that the business works in the US. I was very influenced by, certain books that I read early on in life and just learning about the the stories of people like Carl Fisher, that well-renowned real estate developer down here, and all the famous entrepreneurs that we grew up reading about. So I wanted to be in on the action, and I always had it in my mind that one day I would own a business. Wasn't quite sure what that would be. It started out with real estate, right? And we came here during the previous boom. It was just about to get started, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were new to this country. We had a lot to figure out. I was a kid. I was about to be 13 years old when we moved here.
Mm-hmm.
But just within a few years, I was getting ready to graduate from high school. And, I had to decide what I was going to do. I was going to college regardless, but
Mm-hmm.
I became very interested in real estate. It was because I always had the fascination that I mentioned for buildings and property in general. And it was also a really, really hot market. People were making a lot of money. The opportunities were easy to grab. So I became a real estate agent and started selling and leasing property and buying property
Mm-hmm.
in my teens.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Wow.
that was my first my debut into the professional world and starting a business. And that went really well for a couple of years. And then we all know what happened
Yeah.
just around '08.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we like to think of the crisis of '08, but it started much earlier in Florida. We were the poster child of the boom. We were the poster child of the bust, and
Mm.
everybody lost their shirts. Friends, family, clients, associates, everybody was just struggling to survive, losing their properties, going into bankruptcy, foreclosure, you name it. So it was trying times. It was a rude awakening. At that point I must have been 21, 22 years old when it all came crashing down.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and definitely that was one of the places. Again, we saw it. I saw it here too. So surviving that crisis, right? And while you were still young, right? And you started doing real estate at an early age. What was the next thing for you? Is that when you got involved with financing and started working as a CPA with the law firm, or how did that go about?
Good question. So that was how I effectively stumbled into the world of accounting and finance.
Okay.
Look, I always wanted to be a businessman and an entrepreneur, and real estate was the obvious choice for me early on because of my fascination with buildings and
Mm-hmm.
because I happened to be at the right place at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
which turned out to be the wrong, wrong place at the
Right.
wrong time.
Yeah.
And effectively stumbling into a massive real estate boom in effectively the hottest market in the world at the time. In South Florida was just on a red hot fire. So that was all fine and dandy for a couple of years. Now, when things came crashing down, I became a lot more serious about my college education. I was already in college, but that was just I was getting a diploma just for, to decorate my wall. Now, when the
Mm.
real estate market got completely destroyed, and I saw the carnage that it is to live through a crisis, I said, you know what? Maybe maybe it shouldn't just be for decoration.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get a lot more serious about this and shit for, straight A's and this and that. And look, I made a lot of mistakes in business before that and after that, right? But up until that time, I had no idea what accounting really was. I didn't realize that it was effectively a language that once you learn it, you view things entirely differently. So when I was forced to take my required accounting courses for my bachelor's of business, I
Mm-hmm.
have to take at least two minimum. I actually became very interested and fascinated by accounting.
Mm.
So that's how I effectively stumbled into accounting. Now, beyond that, one of the professors who is like a real world type, let me tell you about my experience rather than this is what the textbook says. This is a woman, a remarkable woman that went up through the ranks at one of the biggest firms in the world and had a lot to share about what that is like and the doors that it opens and the works, right? She opened my eyes to opportunities, and it also happened that the accounting world at that time and still today was a bright spot in the economy.
Mm.
You could be a Harvard MBA at that time, and there was a pretty high likelihood that you would have an extreme difficulty finding a job.
Mm.
And but accountants were still being hired left and right. The good ones at the big firms, they had a lot of opportunities. So long story short, I decided to switch my major from international business to accounting. Now, I was still working in real estate while I was doing that, and the market started coming back, and I had a leg up at a commercial real estate firm. My best friend hooked me up, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, and things were starting to go somewhere, and it was exciting. It's a whole other world, commercial real estate.
Mm.
But then I had to decide, do I continue in real estate or do I explore a career at one of the big firms in accounting and consulting?
Mm-hmm.
They only want you straight out of college. You can't take your time to decide
Right.
and then say, hey, let me try out, the big firm world in a couple of years if I don't end up loving real estate long term. No, forget it. They want you straight out of college or coming from another firm like that.
Mm.
So for better or worse, I chose accounting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the first thing I did when I started at my old firm was say to the people in charge of assignments, I said, please put me on your real estate clients
Mm.
because it's what I know best, it's what I love.
And you
And
understand it.
And
Yeah.
there's a lot of overlap here, right? There's a lot of finance and accounting that goes behind commercial property and developing. So, and they did. So, very
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah, that's good. One thing that comes to mind, I think there's a lot of people that are faced, right? Students specifically, people in college, they're faced with that decision that you had to make either that I continue on this path of just trying to get this certificate or this degree, right? To put it up on my wall and hope that I get a job, or did I change careers in between and go after something different? Tell me what is the biggest lesson or the biggest advice you can give somebody because that people are faced with that, right? I mean, sometimes we go into to school because we want to do something, and before you know it, there's so many different materials or so many different classes, right? Prerequisites, and then you have a different idea of maybe I want to do something different, right? But then people get hung up on should I do this or should I do that, and they never make a decision, and then they might continue to stay on something that maybe they don't like or maybe they do like, but at the end of the day, when they graduate, I mean, let's face it, the world of today, I would say, I don't know the statistics, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty high, that many people when they graduate, they're not working in the field they study, right? So how do you make that
Correct.
transition? And how do you make sure that if you're gonna invest your time and money to go to college, that you hone in on that one thing that you're studying to become at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a million dollar question for a lot of people. And look, in the field of accounting, law, medicine, it's a little bit more clear cut, right? Because you know what you're generally aiming for. But even then, the specialties and the different routes that you can take, be it, big firm, middle, regional firm, little firm, or be it tax, consulting, auditing, that makes a massive difference in where you'll ultimately end up in your career and how happy you'll be.
Mm.
So my advice for those who are yeah, either are still in college or maybe thinking of going back or further specializing in something is to start with not just the end goal in mind, but also think about the compromise that you're willing to make. Because a lot of people will tell you, oh, you got to follow your passion, you got to do what you love. Agreed, but you do also have to take a step back and think about whether that will come at a cost that you cannot pay, right? Because unfortunately, for a lot of people, that passion and that love will just unfortunately not pay the bills
Right.
or be able to, provide for their families and get them to where they will ultimately want to be. So I think it goes one more step beyond that ultimate dream job and passion. It goes, it should also be what price am I willing to pay and what compromise should I make? In my case, the big firm world was a stepping stone all along. I could have chosen a lot more balance in my life and either gone and work for a smaller firm or picked a specialty that is not as intense. But my decision process was more long-term driven, where I realized I had to pay my dues, so to speak, and earn my
Mm.
stripes,
Hmm.
and that had to be compressed in a shorter period. So that's what I would say for the most part. To go beyond the what would ultimately make me the happiest, then also think about what price am I willing to pay, and then maybe go for the second thing, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's
Yeah.
not it's not always what would ideally be the route now.
Right. And one of the things that I have here in my notes that you shared that I think is actually very important to understand is when you were thinking about life in general or becoming an entrepreneur, right? One of the things you mentioned here is that you have to understand your situation. What is your situation? What current situation you're in? And I like what you mentioned. You said clarity creates confidence, right? So if you have a clear idea of where I want to go, or in your case, you're like, how am I doing financially, professionally, or personally? When you have the clear idea, then you have the confidence to go after and follow that, right? And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that people are going to have is how can I hone in on that clarity of what I want my future to be, or what are the things that we want to be able to do, right? And I believe that you talked about one thing earlier. You said you were learning from many books that you were reading, right? You create
Oh
a
yeah.
habit of learning from those people, from those books, to be able to help you determine the type of life and future you're gonna have, right? So talk about the idea of envisioning and having a clear path and understand your situation. How does that look like for us to be able to, like in your case right now, right? You're stepping up. Like, what is the next thing for you? How do you know when you're professionally in the right place, financially in the right place, and personally, health wise, all that stuff in the right place?
To me, it has become a lot more about freedom than anything.
Mm.
And look, I have a plan that puts me where I want to be. It's probably going to be a good decade
Hmm.
before I'm able to explore my personal passions and spend the amount of quality time with my family that I would like to do ideally, because there is always a price to pay.
Right.
And there's no substitute for blood, sweat, and tears, unfortunately.
Mm.
There's balance, but even that is not no substitute for blood, sweat, and tears. So to me, the most important thing is having a midterm and long-term plan that you can back into for the next year or two. Depending on where you are in your career, that might mean, hey, I'm ready to take a step back, or I could cut down on my needs and wants and front load some of that, quality time and leisurely activities that I'd love to do today. In some instances, that might have to get pushed into the 5, 10 year plan. So it's really dependent on circumstances, personal circumstances, but I like to emphasize that 3 to 5 year period versus 10 plus.
Hmm. Got it. No, that's good. Let's talk about your CPA firm. So you specialize in CFO services, tax minimization strategies. Tell me about your business and how you're able to help other people.
The main thing about my business is that I get to work with the people who I love to work with, entrepreneurs.
Mm,
Those business owners who are looking to solve some aspects of their finances, or who are looking to not leave so much on the table for Uncle Sam. And it varies in terms of, what it is that they need and how we go about it. But I like to joke that it's not that different from what a good doctor or what a surgeon does. He or she will get down to the nitty-gritty and identify where the pain and the issues are, and identify and propose the right procedures to eliminate that pain and fix that problem. It usually boils down to truly understanding where you stand, where it's all coming from, and where it's all going, the
mm,
money, right? And it's a job that unfortunately often goes undone for
yeah,
too long, and it ends up becoming cancer. So
yeah,
some of my job is to surgically remove cancerous growth
right.
and alleviate that pain for business owners. And I love it.
Yeah,
It's
for sure. Is there a scale of in terms of a brand new entrepreneur that's barely getting started to high level type of high quality customer, or you can take anywhere in between as long as they're in in the business of on their own.
Everybody needs this sort of thing, but
Yep.
in my case, it's typically entrepreneurs that are getting to just about $1 million up to about 10,
Okay.
because that's where these issues really start to surface. When you're starting out, or you're doing $200,000 to $300,000 a year, there are very different priorities, right? And things are pretty manageable. Typically, the owner wears all the hats, and any staff can lend a hand to kind of just get by, and the focus is typically on selling, and taking care of the business that they have is not so difficult. Where the pain starts to really intensify is once the growth is getting out of hand,
Mm,
and the job of a CFO becomes truly needed. Now, in effectively every business, you have a CEO equivalent,
hmm.
right? Every business owner, in the majority of cases, the business owner himself or herself is the de facto or literal CEO.
Hmm.
The buck stops with them. They make all the calls about the big ticket items, and they usually do a pretty good job, at least until they get to a certain size and the business outgrows them. But the job of a CFO is not filled 9 out of 10 times.
Mm,
That it's a different animal, right? A CFO is somebody who truly understands finance and how that translates into operations and profitability, liquidity, cash flows, how to raise money. That typically goes undone for far too long because it's a different skill set that does not come natural to entrepreneurs.
right.
And it's also a skill set that is relatively hard to find and expensive to hire. But with fractional CFOs, where a firm can come in and fill that void on an on-demand basis, we find that a lot of entrepreneurs are unlocking a lot of power in their businesses that
Mm,
was not the case, 7, 10 years ago. This is very rare.
right.
There weren't a lot of firms that specialized in this, and it just was not a well-known tactic to eliminate that pain.
Mm,
What I do is usually reserved for bigger companies, hiring big firms to do this for them, or just hiring in-house a qualified finance person. But luckily, it has become pretty widely used now where, high six-figure, seven and low eight-figure entrepreneurs are now bringing in big guns on an on-demand basis and knocking out some of those, big ticket items that are best handled by a finance expert.
yeah. No, I love that. I mean, and again, I think it's needed. It's something like you said, everybody needs your service at different levels. And obviously you have identified, which is part of that clarity, right? Kind of going back to the idea that we talked about. It's having a clear vision of what is the one thing you as a person need and want to get you to the next level, right? And I think everyone listening to the show, regardless of what you said that you're doing, that's one of the foundations that you have to have is figure out what is that clarity, what are going to be my next steps, and how did I hone in on those to make sure that I can get there and create that game plan for
Absolutely.
people that that say, hey, I love this, I definitely need somebody like Alex to help me out in my business, and I think I can definitely utilize them for what I'm doing as an entrepreneur. How can they find you? Where can they connect with you, find out more information about you and the things that you have to offer?
Sure. The easiest way to find me is at alexlopezcpa.com.
Oh, I love that. Very simple. Nice and simple there. Got you. Alex, let me ask you this. I think anyone that is in let's say a finance person or engineer, they're very analytical. They think a lot and they have very structured life. Let's talk about that for a second. Do you have any structured things you do on a day-to-day basis, like any habits that you must do every day to kind of keep you up and going every day and keeping you on your toes.
Oh, 100%. Tell you, the number one thing I have to do every single morning is to get a little bit of family time.
Mm,
Even when it's 10 minutes, right, on school days. I have three little kids, so you
yeah.
can imagine I'm a busy guy. And I
Yeah.
have an angel for a wife. She stays home with them and she gives them an amazing life in terms of presence
Yeah.
and activities. So I start every day with that. I make sure I get a little bit of family time. And school days is a lot more difficult, but I get at least a little bit of that. And briefing. I like to read up on my financial news, real estate news, and the briefs on all my clients, followed by big ticket, high focus items. I like to
Mm.
start my work days, which are 6 to 7 days a week,
Yeah.
with the deep focus sessions. I've recently really gotten into Dan Martell, right?
Okay.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you've read Buy Back Your Time or
Yeah.
you've heard of it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. I have. Yeah.
And it's really helped me. Some of the things that he pushes, I've been doing one way or the other for quite some time, but the way that he kind of brings it all together and breaks down the time blocking on your schedule and all that is I found very powerful, and I increased that by a lot. So now I'm really big on that deep focus time. I
Hmm.
put aside a couple of hours every single day to start off with that big ticket items. And then, the day kind of just takes its course for the most part after the first few hours. There's always
Yeah.
fires to put out or things to tend to, but I make sure I start with those first few things
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think that that's huge, and I don't think I've heard many people say that about family time, but I believe that's probably one of the biggest foundations, right? I mean that you definitely have to have. So I love the fact that you're doing that. That's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you, man. No, I tried that because I once heard, I forget who it was, but this somebody said to me, if you're not there when your kids wake up and when they go to sleep, then you weren't there, period. And that
Mm,
just kind of hit me. So I just made it a point. I was like, hey, let's every day, like no matter if in a busy days, I'm at the office, unfortunately, sometimes way longer than I want it to be. I just make it a point. First thing in the morning,
mm,
gotta be there, even if it's 5, 10 minutes, and always at night, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
all day in between that I can get.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually a pretty good. I love it. It's pretty deep. No, I love that. Um, for the people that are listening to us and watching us, if they're going through any challenge, whatever challenge that might be, what is one thing you can say to them so they can start overcome that challenge?
See yourself beyond that challenge.
Mm,
See yourself, feel yourself beyond it. Goes a long way. And another one, I forget where I got this from, but it's effectively the elevator approach.
hmm.
Whenever you find yourself in a predicament or just facing a very difficult challenge, imagine yourself going into an elevator, going up 100 stories high, and then looking at the problem from up above, seeing how insignificant and how clear it will become to you when you're looking at
Mm,
it from up there
yeah,
and all the pieces involved.
yeah,
That has helped me a lot.
yeah,
There is nothing that you can't overcome.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
as some might say, you can overcome anything.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I love that. Oh, that's huge, man. I like that. And I like both of them. I mean, definitely visualizing and seeing yourself beyond that challenge. But I like the fact of seeing it from a very 100-story deep. That's huge. So, man,
It
Alex,
helps.
thank you again. That's awesome. Any last minute words you want to say to the listeners before I let you go?
Whatever it is that you want, that you truly, truly want and desire from the bottom of your heart, go for it. Just go for it. And if there's a compromise to be made along the way, maybe you'll make it, but go for it. Go for it first.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Alex, again, thank you for being here. Really enjoy our conversation and everything you had to share. I think is huge, and so I just want to say thank you for what you're doing and for being able to share those things with my audience.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Make sure you guys go ahead and follow Alex. If you know that you need his services or you know anybody that can use his services, do me a favor. Reach out to Alex. He can be the one to help you with that. And also stay tuned for the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. and know you truly can overcome anything.